Perhaps it was preferable to be a predator among predators rather than a wolf in a petting zoo.
The Fictional Diaries of Wednesday Addams.
Piranhas, precisely. Chapter 1. Preface to Cruelty. The world considers piranhas cruel. I consider them efficient. Cruelty requires emotion, and that's something most humans contract like a terminal disease. Piranhas don't suffer from this defect. They eat what swims, without prejudice, without guilt, without Instagram filters. In this regard, they're superior to humans. Efficiency fascinates me because it eliminates the unnecessary. Human behavior is cluttered with sentiment, social performance, and moral posturing that serves no biological purpose. Piranhas stripped away these pretenses millions of years ago through evolutionary refinement. When I observe a piranha feeding, I see pure function. No hesitation, no second guessing, no committee meetings to determine the ethical implications of hunger. The fish identifies food, approaches food, consumes food. The process is mathematically beautiful in its simplicity. Human predation operates differently. It's disguised as friendship, hidden behind social rituals, justified through elaborate rationalizations. A bully will torment someone for months while claiming it builds character. A piranha simply bites and moves on. Honestly, the fish demonstrates superior moral clarity. My fascination with these creatures began during a childhood visit to the aquarium. While other children pressed against the glass of the colorful reef display, I stood transfixed by the piranha tank. Their economy of movement, their purposeful existence, their complete absence of unnecessary drama. It was poetry in motion. The placard described them as aggressive freshwater fish. But this missed the point entirely. They weren't aggressive. They were authentic. Aggression implies emotion. These fish simply expressed their nature without apology or explanation. I decided that day to study them more closely. Not their anatomy or habitat requirements, but their approach to existence. What could humans learn from creatures that had perfected honesty over millions of years? The answer, as my subsequent experiment would demonstrate, was considerable.
Oh, where are my manners? My name is Grimwick. And that was just one page of tonight's diary.
Chapter 2. The Experiment. My former classmates believed they could prove strength by tormenting the weak. A mistake they shared with many historical figures who now rest either in graveyards or history books. I decided to provide them with tutoring in biology. The curriculum, Survival 101. The materials, 1 pool, 2 aggressors, and a bag of piranhas. The moment I opened the net was almost poetic. Their screams shattered the silence like badly tuned violins. Unfortunately, I was interrupted before the symphony reached its crescendo. Humans have a talent for ruining artwork. Planning the experiment required weeks of careful observation. The subjects followed predictable patterns, arriving at the pool facility every Tuesday and Thursday at precisely 12:15 p.m. They used these sessions to demonstrate their dominance over younger students, establishing territory through intimidation and occasional physical contact. I studied their behavior with scientific detachment. How did they select victims? What environmental factors influenced their aggression levels? Were their attacks coordinated or spontaneous? The data revealed fascinating parallels to predatory fish behavior, which made my choice of educational aids particularly appropriate. Acquiring the piranhas presented interesting challenges. Pet stores required careful questioning to avoid suspicion. I posed as a student researching South American ecosystems for a biology project. The cover story provided plausible explanation for my detailed questions about feeding habits, water temperature requirements, and stress responses. The specimens I selected were adults, approximately 4 inches long, with fully developed dental structure. I maintained them in optimal conditions for 3 days prior to deployment, ensuring peak health and natural aggression levels. Proper preparation was essential for experimental validity. The delivery mechanism required engineering precision. A simple release wouldn't provide adequate distribution or timing control. I constructed a weighted container with a chemical seal designed to dissolve upon contact with chlorinated water. The timing needed to be perfect. Too early would alert the subjects. Too late would reduce educational impact. Weather conditions were ideal. Sunny skies encouraged pool attendance, while slight wind cover masked the sound of my approach. The facility remained unmonitored during lunch periods, providing necessary privacy for the demonstration. The subjects entered the water on schedule, immediately beginning their usual intimidation routine with a smaller student. Perfect timing. As they cornered their victim in the shallow end, I deployed my educational materials into the deep water. The chemical seal dissolved within 30 seconds. 12 adult piranhas dispersed throughout the pool with remarkable efficiency. Their behavior was textbook perfect. Immediate exploration of the new environment, rapid assessment of available resources, coordinated response to stimuli. The subjects noticed the movement approximately 45 seconds after deployment. Their initial reaction was curiosity rather than alarm. They approached the disturbance with the confidence of apex predators investigating their territory. This confidence lasted exactly 17 seconds. The first bite triggered immediate behavioral changes in both species. The piranhas responded to blood in the water with increased activity levels. The humans responded with vocalizations that could be heard 3 blocks away. Chapter 3: Media and Misunderstandings. The press called it a vicious attack. Teachers spoke of depraved violence. A psychologist diagnosed lack of empathy. I disagree. It wasn't an attack, but an experiment. Not violence, but science. And empathy wasn't lacking, it was simply unnecessary. No one expects a chemist to feel sympathy for hydrochloric acid. The media response revealed more about societal biases than my experimental methodology. Headlines emphasized sensation over accuracy, emotion over analysis. Teen terror unleashes killer fish suggested deliberate dramatization rather than factual reporting. Television crews arrived within hours, transforming the school into a circus of manufactured outrage. Reporters interviewed anyone willing to provide quotable horror, collecting sound bites to construct their predetermined narrative of innocent victims and evil perpetrator. The actual facts proved less compelling than the fiction they preferred. 2 bullies received minor injuries during an educational demonstration. No permanent damage occurred. No one died. The piranhas suffered more harm than the humans, eventually succumbing to chlorine poisoning. But facts rarely interfere with good storytelling. The media needed villains and victims, clear moral divisions between good and evil. My experiment defied such simple categorization, so they simplified it through selective editing and strategic omission. The psychological evaluation was particularly amusing. Dr. Martinez spent 3 hours probing for evidence of mental illness, childhood trauma, or antisocial personality disorder. She couldn't accept that my actions stemmed from logical analysis rather than emotional dysfunction. Her questions revealed assumptions about normal adolescent behavior that highlighted her own limitations. She expected remorse, guilt, or at least recognition that I'd done something wrong. Instead, she encountered scientific curiosity about cause and effect relationship. The evaluation concluded that I demonstrated unusual detachment from conventional moral frameworks. Inaccurate assessment, though she intended it as criticism rather than compliment. Chapter 4. Parent-Teacher Conference. Father laughed. His loyalty belongs to chaos and me, in that order. Mother sighed, probably from nostalgia. She understands the appeal of forcing people to reveal their true weaknesses. Pugsley was enthusiastic. He asked if he could keep the remains. I declined. Some projects aren't shareable. The meeting convened in the principal's office with appropriate solemnity. 5 administrators, 3 school board members, both my parents, and 1 legal representative gathered to discuss my educational future. The atmosphere suggested a war crimes tribunal rather than a disciplinary hearing. Principal Henderson opened with prepared remarks about the school's commitment to student safety. His glasses slipped repeatedly during his speech, a reliable indicator of discomfort with his own words. Authority figures often reveal their insecurity through involuntary physical tells. The charges were read with theatrical gravity. Willful endangerment of student welfare. Premeditated assault with unconventional weapons. Disruption of educational environment. Each phrase was carefully chosen for maximum emotional impact rather than factual accuracy. Father's response was characteristically direct. He questioned why the school allowed unsupervised pool access if they were concerned about student safety. He noted that my actions, while unconventional, had effectively addressed a bullying problem that administrators had ignored for months. Mother's contribution was more subtle. She inquired about the school's definition of normal student behavior and whether systematically tormenting weaker classmates qualified as acceptable social interaction. Her questions exposed the hypocrisy underlying their moral outrage. The administrators exchanged uncomfortable glances. They hadn't expected the Addams family to mount a logical defense rather than apologetic surrender. Their prepared responses assumed guilt and remorse that simply didn't exist. Pugsley's enthusiasm provided the meeting's only genuine moment. His excitement about the piranhas was refreshingly honest compared to the performative horror displayed by everyone else. At least one person appreciated the experiment's artistic merits. The legal representative attempted to negotiate reduced consequences in exchange for psychological counseling and public apology. Father declined immediately. He had no intention of allowing his daughter to be pathologized for demonstrating superior problem-solving skills. Chapter 5. false consequences. They expelled me from school. Endangering school peace, they said. I call it improving biodiversity. Schools aren't havens of peace. They're arenas where students fight daily social battles. I simply ensured the weapons were more honest. The expulsion hearing was conducted with ceremonial formality designed to demonstrate institutional authority. Each administrator delivered prepared statements condemning my actions while carefully avoiding any mention of the circumstances that precipitated them. They spoke of trauma counseling for witnesses, enhanced security measures for the pool facility, and policy reviews to prevent similar incidents. No one mentioned counseling for bullying victims or policy reviews to address systematic intimidation. The irony was exquisite. My experiment had accomplished what months of administrative intervention had failed to achieve. The bullying stopped immediately. The subjects never again approached younger students with predatory intent. Yet this success was presented as evidence of my dangerous influence. The punishment was transfer to Nevermore Academy, a place for outcasts. Ironic. I've never felt the need to belong anywhere. But perhaps it's better to be imprisoned with monsters who accept their nature than with humans who merely suppress theirs. Nevermore's reputation preceded it. Founded for students with exceptional abilities, the institution acknowledged what mainstream education refused to recognize: that some individuals operated outside conventional parameters. My piranha experiment would probably rank as relatively mundane among my future classmates' achievements. The transfer was presented as punishment, but I viewed it as promotion. Finally, an educational environment designed for minds that refused standardization. Teachers who understood that different didn't mean defective. Curricula that embraced rather than suppressed intellectual curiosity. The paperwork was extensive. Medical records, psychological evaluations, academic transcripts, disciplinary reports. Each document attempted to categorize and classify what had occurred, filing my actions under established systems of behavioral analysis. Most interesting was the section requesting special accommodations or considerations. The form assumed disability rather than superiority, weakness rather than strength. I left it blank. Exceptional students shouldn't require accommodations. They should receive appreciation. Chapter 6. Taxonomy of Prey. The bullies were interesting while they screamed. Before that, they were predictable. I began systematically comparing classmates to piranhas. The loud ones. Like piranhas on stimulants. Quick, frantic, uncoordinated. They used volume to compensate for substance, noise to mask intellectual emptiness. Their aggression was performative rather than functional. The quiet ones, like piranhas in shadows, dangerous when they suddenly emerged. They observed before attacking, studied weaknesses before exploiting them. Their patience made them genuinely threatening. The teachers. Goldfish in the wrong tank. Decorative but useless. They possessed neither the predatory instincts of their students nor the defensive capabilities necessary for survival. Evolution had somehow bypassed them entirely. Every school is an aquarium. Most are simply poorly filtered. The comparison wasn't metaphorical. Human social dynamics mirror aquatic ecosystems with remarkable precision. Territorial disputes, feeding hierarchies, mating displays, defensive strategies, all present in both environments. The pool facility served as a perfect laboratory for observing these behaviors. Removed from classroom constraints, students revealed their authentic selves. aggression became overt, hierarchies crystallized, survival instincts emerged. My subjects had established themselves as apex predators in this micro-environment. They controlled access to prime locations, determined acceptable behavior through intimidation, and eliminated threats through coordinated attacks. Classic pack behavior. The introduction of actual predators disrupted their artificial dominance. Suddenly, they found themselves occupying a different position in the food chain. The experience was profoundly educational for those capable of learning from it. Observation of other students' reactions provided additional data. Some fled immediately, demonstrating superior survival instincts. Others remained to watch, revealing predatory curiosity about violence. A few attempted intervention, suggesting misguided heroic tendencies. The most interesting response came from previous victims of the subject's aggression. They showed no sympathy for their former tormentors, instead watching with expressions of satisfied justice. Natural law had finally asserted itself over social convention. Chapter 7. Ethics are overrated. They accuse me of having no morals. Actually, I have very clear ones. Whoever exploits weakness deserves to have their own exposed. That's not cruelty. That's accounting. Piranhas perform this accounting more precisely than any court system. The moral framework applied to my actions revealed society's fundamental confusion about justice. They condemned my intervention while ignoring the systematic cruelty that necessitated it. Apparently, slow psychological torture was acceptable, but immediate physical consequence was unconscionable. This selective moral outrage highlighted the difference between legal and natural justice. Legal justice operates through bureaucratic processes, delayed gratification, and symbolic punishment. Natural justice is immediate, proportionate, and educational. My experiment represented natural justice in its purest form. Actions produced immediate consequences. Predators discovered they could also be prey. The artificial protection of institutional authority was stripped away, revealing authentic power dynamics. The ethical criticism came primarily from individuals who'd never experienced genuine victimization. They possessed the luxury of theoretical morality, untested by real-world application. Their outrage was performative rather than authentic. More interesting were the responses from actual victims of bullying. They understood the justice of my intervention, even if they couldn't publicly support it. Private conversations revealed widespread approval for actions they were socially required to condemn. The psychological evaluation included extensive discussion of empathy deficits. Dr. Martinez couldn't comprehend that my empathy was selective rather than absent. I felt considerable sympathy for genuine victims of abuse. I felt none for their abusers. This selectivity was treated as pathological rather than rational. Apparently, healthy individuals were expected to extend equal compassion to predators and prey, aggressors and victims. Such moral equivalence struck me as the genuine psychological dysfunction. Piranhas demonstrated superior ethical clarity. They responded to aggression with aggression, maintained territorial boundaries through decisive action, and eliminated threats to community stability. Their justice was swift, certain, and effective. Chapter 8. Preparation for New Waters. Nevermore Academy represented uncharted territory, an institution that acknowledged rather than suppressed exceptional abilities. Teachers who understood that unusual didn't mean defective. Students who shared my appreciation for authentic rather than performed behavior. Research revealed fascinating possibilities. The curriculum included advanced biology with live specimen work, chemistry laboratories equipped for explosive experimentation, and literature courses that analyzed human darkness without censorship. Finally, education designed for minds that refused conventional limitations. The student body reportedly included genetic variants, supernatural abilities, and psychological configurations that defied standard classification. My piranha experiment would probably rank as moderately interesting rather than shocking among my future classmates' achievements. Packing required careful consideration. Which books would survive dormitory inspection? Which tools might prove useful for future experiments? Which personal items could serve multiple purposes if circumstances required creative problem-solving? My cello deserved special attention. Music provided necessary emotional outlet, while the instrument itself offered practical applications beyond artistic expression. Strings possessed remarkable tensile strength. The bow could serve as measuring device or pressure applicator. Even art should be functional. The Nevermore Handbook promised individualized learning experiences and accommodation of unique talents. Bureaucratic language that suggested genuine understanding of educational diversity. Perhaps I'd finally found an institution that appreciated excellence rather than feared it. Campus photographs revealed Gothic architecture surrounded by natural forest. The aesthetic appealed to me. Stone and shadow, history and mystery. After years in fluorescent-lit educational prisons, the environment alone justified the transfer. Most importantly, Nevermore's disciplinary policies emphasized rehabilitation rather than punishment. Students were expected to channel their abilities constructively rather than suppress them entirely. My future experiments could focus on refinement rather than concealment. Chapter 9: Conclusion and Reflection. I lost my piranhas, but I gained a lesson. Humans hate mirrors, especially ones made of water. The experiment achieved its primary objectives. Justice was served through natural rather than institutional channels. The subjects learned that predatory behavior invited predatory response. The broader student body observed that power dynamics could shift rapidly and dramatically. Secondary effects proved equally valuable. Administrative authority was revealed as arbitrary and ineffective. Social hierarchies demonstrated their artificial nature. The thin veneer of civilization was temporarily stripped away, exposing authentic human behavior. The media response provided data on societal reaction to unconventional justice. Public outrage was manufactured rather than authentic, designed to reinforce existing power structures rather than examine their validity. Truth remained secondary to narrative consistency. My family's support confirmed that authentic relationships transcend social expectations. Their appreciation for my methodology validated my approach, while their practical advice improved my execution. Future experiments would benefit from their experience. The transfer to Nevermore represented opportunity rather than punishment. Finally, an educational environment designed for minds that operated outside conventional parameters. Perhaps I'd discover classmates worthy of genuine intellectual exchange. The Piranha experiment marked a transition point in my educational journey. Previous demonstrations had been reactive responses to immediate circumstances. Future projects would be proactive expressions of systematic inquiry. The loss of my aquatic collaborators was regrettable but temporary. Other opportunities would arise. Different circumstances would require different approaches. The principles remained constant even as the applications evolved. Daily aphorism. Teachers call it animal cruelty. I call it career counseling for predatory fish. Final entry. Note: every pool is an ecosystem. Most people just haven't figured out which species they are. The darkness outside my window tonight seems different, anticipatory rather than conclusive. Tomorrow begins another phase of my education, in waters that might finally prove deep enough for serious swimming.
Ah. I trust you enjoyed this glimpse into a most curious diary. If so, leave behind a small token of your delight with a like, and do consider joining our circle by subscribing. And remember, ring the little bell, and you shall be the very first to know when another diary or a fresh entry emerges from the shadows. And if a whisper stirs in your mind, a thought, a riddle, perhaps a name of someone whose secrets you would dare to uncover, leave it for me below. I read them one by one. And who knows, your wish may guide my hand to the very next diary I choose from my collection.